William Henry Harrison became the 9th President of the United States in 1841. Elected at age 67, he was then the oldest man to take the office, and became the first U.S. President to die in office. His one-month tenure was the shortest. His father, Benjamin, was a signer of the Declaration of Independence, and his grandson, also Benjamin, became the 23rd president. William Henry Harrison was an American military officer and politician who served as the 9th President of the United States. Harrison died just 31 days after his inauguration as president in 1841, making his presidency the shortest in U.S. history. He was also the first U.S. president to die in office, causing a brief constitutional crisis since presidential succession was not then fully defined in the United States Constitution. Harrison was the last president born as a British subject in the 13 colonies and was the paternal grandfather of Benjamin Harrison, the 23rd President of the United States. Harrison was born into the Harrison family of Virginia at their homestead, Berkeley Plantation. He was a son of Benjamin Harrison V., a founding father of the United States. During his early military career, Harrison participated in the 1794 Battle of Fallen Timbers, an American military victory that ended the Northwest Indian War. Later, he led a military force against Tecumseh's Confederacy at the Battle of Tippecanoe in 1811, where he earned the nickname Old Tippecanoe. He was promoted to Major General in the Army during the War of 1812, and led American infantry and cavalry to victory at the Battle of the Thames in Upper Canada. Harrison's political career began in 1798, with an appointment as Secretary of the Northwest Territory. In 1799, he was elected as the territory's non-voting delegate in the United States House of Representatives. He became governor of the newly established Indiana Territory in 1801 and negotiated multiple treaties with American Indian tribes, with the nation acquiring millions of acres. After the War of 1812, he moved to Ohio where, in 1816, he was elected to represent the state's 1st district in the House of Representatives. In 1824, he was elected to the United States Senate, though his Senate term was cut short by his appointment as Minister Plenipotentiary to Gran Colombia in 1828. Harrison returned to private life in North Bend, Ohio, until he was nominated as one of several Whig Party nominees for president in the 1836 United States presidential election. He was defeated by Democratic Vice President Martin Van Buren. 4 years later, the party nominated him again, with John Tyler as his running mate, under the campaign slogan Tippecanoe and Tyler Too. Harrison defeated Van Buren in the 1840 presidential election. Just 3 weeks after his inauguration, Harrison fell ill and died days later. After resolution of an ambiguity in the Constitution regarding succession to the powers and duties of the office, Tyler became president. Harrison is often omitted in historical presidential rankings due to his brief tenure and placed significantly below average when he is included. However, he is remembered for his Indian entreaties, and also his inventive election campaign tactics. William Henry Harrison was born at the luxurious Berkeley Plantation in Virginia in 1773. He was the youngest of Elizabeth and Benjamin Harrison's 7 children. During William's boyhood, his father signed the Declaration of Independence and was governor of Virginia. William studied classics at Hampden-Sydney College and medicine at the University of Pennsylvania until his father's death in 1791. With the help of family friend Light Horse Harry Lee, Harrison secured a commission in the 1st American Regiment and relocated to present-day Ohio. He served as an aide-de-camp to General Anthony Wayne at the 1794 Battle of Fallen Timbers, where Mad Anthony commended Harrison's conduct and bravery, exciting the troops to press for victory. The following year he was a signatory on the Treaty of Greenville, which ended the Northwest Indian War and opened the area for settlement by whites. That same year, 1795, Harrison met Anna Tuthill Symmes, the daughter of John Clovis Symmes. Knowing Anna's father did not approve of the match, the couple eloped and married on November 25, 1795. It was an advantageous marriage for Harrison. Symmes was a well-connected judge and a veteran of the Revolutionary War. Judge Symmes eventually sold the couple a plot of land in North Bend, Ohio, which became the Harrisons' home. Harrison resigned from the Army at age 25 and embarked on a political career that centered around expanding white settlement in the Northwest Territory. After a brief stint as secretary for the territory, he became its first delegate to the United States Congress at age 26. He was instrumental in establishing Indiana Territory and became its first governor in 1801. Over the next 11 years, he negotiated treaties with Native American tribal leaders, acquiring millions of acres by force or encroachment. Harrison expanded Indiana's white settler population and put the territory on the path to statehood. Tensions with Native Americans boiled over in 1810. Members of the Shawnee tribe, led by Tecumseh and his brother Tenskwatawa, demanded Harrison nullify the Treaty of Fort Wayne and threatened reprisals on those who attempted to settle what they considered to be disputed territory. Fearing the situation would threaten Indiana's statehood, Harrison assumed command of a mixed force of militia and U.S. regular troops and led them toward Tenskwatawa's encampment along the Tippecanoe River. He had hoped this show of force would intimidate Native American leaders into negotiating. Instead, it prompted them to attack, resulting in the Battle of Tippecanoe. Though Harrison suffered heavy losses, the withdrawal of Tenskwatawa's forces allowed him to claim a decisive victory which would follow him for the rest of his career. Victory at Tippecanoe cemented Harrison's status as a leader on the frontier. When war with Great Britain came in 1812, he was commissioned brigadier general and tapped to command the Army of the Northwest. He led it at the Battle of the Thames, which was a major U.S. victory over a force composed of British and Native Americans under Tecumseh, who was killed in the battle. Resigning from the Army in 1814, Harrison again played a critical role in negotiating treaties with tribal leaders. Congress later awarded him a gold medal for his wartime contributions. Harrison returned to Congress in the decade after the War of 1812, first as a member of the House of Representatives from 1816 to 1819, then as a senator from 1825 to 1828. In 1840, Harrison began his second attempt at a presidential campaign as a Whig poised to defeat the incumbent Martin Van Buren. Although born from Virginia aristocracy, the Whigs painted Harrison as a rugged frontiersman and Indian fighter. The image of a log cabin became synonymous with his presidential campaign. This was juxtaposed with President Martin Van Buren, who was chastised as eccentric and out of touch with the common man. Harrison won the election of 1840, gathering much of his support from southern and western states. The day of Harrison's inauguration, March 4, 1841, was wet and cold. The president-elect, however, opted to forego an overcoat or top hat. His inaugural address totaled 8,445 words and took nearly 2 hours to deliver. 3 weeks later, after another extended outing in the rain, he developed pneumonia and, later, severe diarrhea. He died April 4, after just 31 days in office. Though historians long attributed his death to pneumonia, recent scholarship suggests that the White House's drinking water was contaminated by public sewage and that Harrison likely died from septic shock. Regardless of the cause, his death made Harrison's presidential term the shortest in American history. His grandson, Benjamin, went on to become the 23rd President of the United States. Give him a barrel of hard cider and settle a pension of $2,000 a year on him, and my word for it, a Democratic newspaper foolishly jibed about William Henry Harrison. He will sit, by the side of a sea coal and study moral philosophy. The Whigs, seizing on this political misstep, in 1840 presented their candidate Harrison as a simple frontiersman, living in a log cabin and drinking cider, in sharp contrast to an aristocratic champagne-sipping Van Buren. Harrison was in fact a scion of the Virginia planter aristocracy. He was born on February 9, 1773 at Berkeley Plantation to one of Virginia's wealthiest slave-owning families. He studied classics and history at Hampden-Sydney College, then began the study of medicine. Then in 1791, Harrison obtained a commission as ensign in the 1st Infantry of the Regular Army, and headed to the northwest, where he spent much of his life. In 1795, Harrison married Anna Tuthill Symmes. They would go on to have 10 children together. As Native American peoples continued to resist displacement, Harrison served as aide-de-camp to General Mad Anthony Wayne at the Battle of Fallen Timbers, which opened most of the Ohio area to settlement. After resigning from the Army in 1798, he became Secretary of the Northwest Territory, was its first delegate to Congress, and helped obtain legislation dividing the territory into the Northwest and Indiana territories. In 1801 he became governor of the Indiana Territory, serving 12 years. Harrison's primary task as governor was to secure more land for white settlers. He negotiated treaties for millions of acres in exchange for small amounts of money. When Native Americans refused to accept these agreements, or attacked encroaching settlements, Harrison responded with military force. The threat against settlers became serious in 1809. Eager to repel invading settlers, an eloquent and energetic Shawnee chief, Tecumseh, with his religious brother, the Prophet, began to strengthen a Native American confederation to prevent further encroachment. In 1811 Harrison received permission to attack the Confederacy. While Tecumseh was away seeking more allies, Harrison led about 1,000 men toward Prophetstown. Both sides agreed to a ceasefire until Tecumseh's return. The next morning, November 7, 1811, the Native American warriors attacked his camp on Tippecanoe River. After heavy fighting, Harrison repulsed them, but suffered 190 dead and wounded in the Battle of Tippecanoe. After driving the warriors from the field, Harrison and his men then burned Prophetstown. Violence continued to escalate into the spring of 1812 as Tecumseh and his remaining native allies carried out raids against white settlements. During the War of 1812, Harrison won more military laurels when he was given the command of the army in the Northwest with the rank of Brigadier General. At the Battle of the Thames, north of Lake Erie, on October 5, 1813, he defeated the combined British and Native American forces. Tecumseh was killed in the battle, scattering his allies and destroying the delicate Native American alliance he had forged. The Native Americans scattered, never again to offer serious resistance in what was then called the Northwest. Throughout his lifetime, Harrison offered contradictory views on slavery. As a slave owner, he opposed the idea of Congress restricting slavery in new territories. As his political career took off, he carefully avoided condemning slavery and instead professed the belief that the states themselves should decide its fate. He was nominated by the Whig Party in 1840 and won the election by less than 150,000 votes. However, he captured the Electoral College in a landslide, 234 to 60, with strong support from the western and southern states. When he arrived in Washington in February 1841, Harrison let Massachusetts Senator Daniel Webster edit his inaugural address, ornate with classical allusions. According to one recollection, Webster obtained some deletions, boasting in a jolly fashion that he had killed 17 Roman proconsuls as dead as smelts, every one of them. Webster had reason to be pleased, for while Harrison was nationalistic in his outlook, he emphasized in his inaugural address that he would be obedient to the will of the people as expressed through Congress. But before he had been in office a month, he became severely ill. On April 4, 1841, he died at the White House, the first president to die in office, and with him died the Whig program. Harrison had been physically worn down by many persistent office seekers and a demanding social schedule. On Wednesday, March 24, 1841, Harrison took his daily morning walk to local markets, without a coat or hat. Despite being caught in a sudden rainstorm, he did not change his wet clothes upon return to the White House. On Friday, March 26, Harrison became ill with cold-like symptoms and sent for his doctor, Thomas Miller, though he told the doctor he felt better after having taken medication for fatigue and mental anxiety. The next day, Saturday, the doctor was called again, and arrived to find Harrison in bed with a severe chill, after taking another early morning walk. Miller applied mustard plaster to his stomach and gave him a mild laxative, and he felt better that afternoon. At 4 a.m. Sunday, March 28, Harrison developed severe pain in the side and the doctor initiated bloodletting. The procedure was terminated when there was a drop in his pulse rate. Miller also applied heated cups to the president's skin to enhance blood flow. The doctor then gave him castor oil and medicines to induce vomiting, and diagnosed him with pneumonia in the right lung. A team of doctors was called in Monday, March 29, and they confirmed right lower lobe pneumonia. Harrison was then administered laudanum, opium, and camphor, along with wine and brandy. No official announcements were made concerning Harrison's illness, which fueled public speculation and concern the longer he remained out of public view. Washington society had noticed his uncharacteristic absence from church on Sunday. Conflicting and unconfirmed newspaper reports were based on leaks by people with contacts in the White House. A Washington paper reported on Thursday, April 1, that Harrison's health was decidedly better. In fact, Harrison's condition had seriously weakened, and cabinet members and family were summoned to the White House. His wife Anna had remained in Ohio due to her own illness. According to papers in Washington on Friday, Harrison had rallied, despite a Baltimore Sun report that his condition was of a more dangerous character. A reporter for the New York Commercial indicated that the country's people were deeply distressed and many of them in tears. In the evening of Saturday, April 3, Harrison developed severe diarrhea and became delirious, and at 8:30 p.m. he uttered his last words, to his attending doctor, assumed to be for Vice President John Tyler: "Sir, I wish you to understand the true principles of the government. I wish them carried out. I ask nothing more." Harrison died at 12:30 a.m. on April 4, 1841, Palm Sunday, 9 days after becoming ill and exactly 1 month after taking the oath of office. He was the first president to die in office. Harrison's wife Anna was still in Ohio packing for the trip to Washington when she learned of her loss. Anna never moved into the White House. Harrison's daughter-in-law, Jane Irwin Harrison, widow of Harrison's son, had served as hostess of the White House in Anna's place while Harrison was president. The prevailing theory at the time was that his illness had been caused by the bad weather at his inauguration 3 weeks earlier. Jane McHugh and Philip A. McOwayak did an analysis in Clinical Infectious Diseases, 2014, examining Miller's notes and records showing that the White House water supply was downstream of public sewage, and they concluded that he likely died of septic shock due to enteric fever, typhoid or paratyphoid fever. A 30-day period of mourning commenced following the president's death. The White House hosted various public ceremonies, modeled after European royal funeral practices. An invitation-only funeral service was also held on April 7 in the East Room of the White House, after which Harrison's coffin was brought to Congressional Cemetery in Washington, D.C., where it was placed in the public vault. Solomon Northup gave an account of the procession in 12 Years a Slave. The next day there was a great pageant in Washington. The roar of cannon and the tolling of bells filled the air, while many houses were shrouded with crape, and the streets were black with people. As the day advanced, the procession made its appearance, coming slowly through the avenue, carriage after carriage, in long succession, while thousands upon thousands followed on foot, all moving to the sound of melancholy music. They were bearing the dead body of Harrison to the grave. I remember distinctly how the window glass would break and rattle to the ground, after each report of the cannon they were firing in the burial ground. That June, Harrison's body was transported by train and river barge to North Bend, Ohio, and he was buried on July 7 at the summit of Mt. Nebo, which is now the William Henry Harrison Tomb State Memorial. On April 5, Fletcher Webster, the son of Secretary of State Daniel Webster, notified Tyler that Harrison had died in office. Tyler had been visiting family in Williamsburg. Tyler arrived in Washington on the morning of April 6. That same day, Tyler was sworn into office in front of Harrison's cabinet, officially beginning his presidency. On April 9, Tyler gave a brief inaugural address. In his address to the nation, Tyler did not give any personal consolation to Harrison's widow Anna or family members. Tyler did compliment Harrison by saying Harrison had been elected for a great work of purging the federal government of corruption. Tyler and his family moved into the White House 1 week after Harrison's funeral, before Harrison's 30-day time of mourning was over. The White House staterooms were still hung with black mourning crapes. Harrison's death called attention to an ambiguity in Article 2, Section 1, Clause 6 of the Constitution regarding succession to the presidency. The Constitution clearly provided for the Vice President to take over the powers and duties of the said office in the event of a president's removal, death, resignation, or inability, but it was unclear whether the Vice President formally became President of the United States, or simply temporarily assumed the powers and duties of that office, in a case of succession. Harrison's cabinet insisted that Tyler was Vice President acting as President. Tyler was resolute in his claim to the title of President and in his determination to exercise the full powers of the presidency. The cabinet consulted with Chief Justice Roger Taney and decided that, if Tyler took the presidential oath of office, he would assume the office of President. Tyler obliged and was sworn into office on April 6, 1841. Congress convened, and on May 31, 1841, after a short period of debate in both houses, passed a joint resolution, which confirmed Tyler as president for the remainder of Harrison's term. The precedent that Congress set in 1841 was followed on 7 occasions when an incumbent president died, and it was written into the Constitution in 1967 through Section 1 of the 25th Amendment. Among Harrison's most enduring legacies is the series of treaties that he negotiated and signed with Indian leaders during his tenure as the Indiana Territorial Governor. As part of the treaty negotiations, the tribe ceded large tracts of land in the West which provided additional acreage for purchase and settlement by the nation. Harrison's long-term impact on American politics includes his campaigning methods, which laid the foundation for modern presidential campaign tactics. Harrison died nearly penniless, and Congress voted his wife Anna a presidential widow's pension of $25,000, 1 year of Harrison's salary, equivalent to about $738,000 in 2023. She also received the right to mail letters free of charge. Freeling refers to Harrison as the most dominant figure in the evolution of the Northwest Territories into the Upper Midwest today. Harrison, age 68 at the time of his inauguration, was the oldest person to assume the U.S. presidency, a distinction he held until 1981, when Ronald Reagan was inaugurated at age 69. Harrison's son John Scott Harrison represented Ohio in the House of Representatives between 1853 and 1857. Harrison's grandson Benjamin Harrison of Indiana served as the 23rd president from 1889 to 1893, making William and Benjamin Harrison the only grandparent-grandchild pair of presidents. Several monuments and memorial statues have been erected in tribute to Harrison. There are public statues of him in downtown Indianapolis, Cincinnati's Piatt Park, the Tippecanoe County Courthouse, Harrison County, Indiana, and Owen County, Indiana. Numerous counties and towns also bear his name. The village of North Bend, Ohio, honors Harrison every year with a parade to celebrate his birthday. The Gen. William Henry Harrison headquarters in Franklinton, Ohio, commemorates Harrison. The house was his military headquarters from 1813 to 1814. On February 19, 2009, the U.S. Mint released the 9th coin in the presidential $1 coin program, bearing Harrison's likeness. Thank you for watching this video.